It's kind of weird.
So I have a question for you. How'd you get Crazy Hermit DM?
It's a play on Star Wars, actually, A New Hope. Uncle Owen, he's just a crazy hermit beyond the Dune Sea.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. I was
Oh, Uncle
wondering.
Owen and Aunt Vru.
It's funny because I was thinking maybe it was like a Lord of the Rings reference, um, or something in Dungeons and Dragons, but I like that it was Star Wars.
Yeah, I just kind of always like that. Feel that's probably before D&D got to become popular and more mainstream. That's probably
Yeah.
how people probably describe me. Were you always, did you grow up loving Star Wars?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
I went
Did you
to
watch did you watch like the originals first, or did you start like when they came back out in like the was it 90s? Mid 90s?
yeah, I've watched them since was it TBS had their marathons or had the VHS
Yeah.
set, and then the special editions came out in '96, and then Phantom Menace came out in '99, and all that.
That's awesome. I remember going to pretty sure it was Phantom Menace. I went with my
Mhm.
cousins, and my youngest cousin dressed up as an Ewok, and he's probably 7 or 8, so he was like the perfect height for an Ewok, like full Ewok costume, but with like sneakers. And I remember being in the mall, and it was so hot in the theater because the theater was just packed, and he refused to take off part of his costume, and the kid was just drenched. So finally, like halfway through the movie, it was like, okay, take it off. And he was just, I just remember him being so sweaty, but he just was so into the costume and he was so excited to watch the movie that he just did not want to come out of that character. But people were like, look, there's an Ewok. It was just cute to see this little kid, like
I
7 years old.
remember being at a local con and just being so impressed that a parent convinced either their 3 kids or their kid and like 2 of their friends to dress up as Jawas and go around stealing random things around the con, like wet floor signs and all
That's
that, and put
so
it in their wagon.
awesome. That is so awesome.
That's perfect.
That's a pretty good con to pull off. Like, oh no, I'm just in character, and then you go home with a bunch of loot. That's actually pretty smart. Someone listening to this podcast might be like, "Ooh, now I have an idea."
Oh, I'm sure I've seen it at a couple cons, so I think it's unorthodox, but I think
Or is
it's
it
a
really?
pretty known idea. Yeah.
I love it. Have you ever
I have
gone to the premiere of like a Star Wars movie or any movie and like just full on dressed up cosplay?
no, but I did go with a red lightsaber to Revenge of the Sith.
That
And like a
classic.
Star Wars shirt. Yeah.
Classic. I think I dressed up as Leia when she was on Endor and she had that like
Yep.
camo poncho on, boots, the whole thing. And my cousin dressed up as Han,
The same one that was the Ewok.
the same one, but this time he was like, 6 feet tall instead of 3. Um, and then did you, Jonathan, you had like a Wookiee onesie or something that someone
Yeah, I
bought, but you
did. I
never
did
actually
not wear it.
you didn't wear it? Yeah, you didn't wind up wearing it.
No.
It's fun.
Oh
It's
yeah.
fun, right? Do you go to Ren fairs?
Yeah, I actually not this year, but last year I went to a couple just wearing my podcast stuff just to try and get it out to the locals a little bit and just talking to
Cool.
because Dungeon Crate, which is like the OG like
Yeah.
TTRPG subscription service, is actually
Yep.
based here out of Omaha.
Is it really?
Okay. Yeah. He actually has a shop and
Cool.
everything. I know the guy. I'm Facebook friends with him and all that, and
Really?
talked to him more than
That's
once.
awesome.
Yeah.
We actually just became an affiliate with them. We haven't
Oh,
even like
Dungeon.
put any and yeah.
Oh, Dungeon
Dungeon
Crate.
the oh, is it Dungeon Crate or is it only games?
I think you're thinking only games.
Only games. Never mind. Dungeon
Only
Crate.
games.
Sorry.
Yeah. Mhm.
Only
Yeah.
games. Whoops. Never mind. But I mean, if you want to be an affiliate of our, if we can be an affiliate of yours, that works out too. But that's cool that you know him and he has a shop there. That's pretty neat.
Yeah. I'm trying to work out some deals with him as well.
You should. You
Plus,
should. Yeah. We're
he's a super interesting guy when you like get to know him and all that. Like paramedic back in like Alaska back in the 80s.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys must
So I'm
connect on a lot of different levels, right? Like
oh yeah.
with your background and all of
Yeah,
your
that's kind of I'm hoping to
gaming.
get him on the podcast this summer if not the fall and just deep dive into just knowing him even. I think that would just be great to know the person even behind like a DM screen.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoy listening to podcasts because you see people online on Instagram or on TV, and then you get to like actually meet them on a podcast and like get to know the person and not just like, a persona or a face that you see that you think is one way. Like, and that's why at the end we always do our quick rapid fire questions too, because we try not to make them about D&D, although sometimes they're related, but it's
Oh
just a
yeah.
nice way for people to connect with each of us on a different level. Well, I think that is actually a good introduction to welcome everyone to another episode of The Parking Lot. I am Sarah, and then we have Jonathan, and today we're super excited to be talking to Nate, aka Crazy Hermit DM. Jonathan and I had the privilege of being on Nate's podcast last fall, and we're going to be talking to him today about his campaign that he just wrapped up and a bunch of other
Yeah,
really exciting things.
super excited.
Um,
You
so
you
how
guys were
your
actually my
campaign just wrapped?
oh you were actually my Christmas special actually.
We were.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. That was fun. That was a really I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I always get not anxious, but you never know how a conversation is going to go, and we talked like easily, just
Oh
very
yeah.
comfortably for an hour.
Anyways, you
Let
had
me
a
try to see if I
question.
can hold this on to July 4th, and then you'll be our July 4th episode.
Okay,
Yeah, because
I'm
we
just gonna
can't
see
do
if I can
like
make that happen.
are we we're past half Christmas, right?
what's that? Sorry.
Half, we're past like the half Christmas
No,
mark.
June 25th would be
Oh
half
Or
yeah.
Christmas, right?
oh,
Yeah,
June 20.
July.
Okay, we can do, half Christmas.
Yeah,
I can make
Christmas
that
and
happen too.
there's a Christmas in July thing too.
Yeah, there is. You're
There
right.
we go. We'll make
Absolutely.
something happen.
Yeah,
We'll figure it out. We'll make an event of it.
for
So
sure.
Nate, you just wrapped up your campaign. I am beyond impressed. You got to how many sessions? 69, 70?
69 with this one. This villain actually, as I was explained to a couple people, this villain stuck in my head till like 2018 through two failed campaigns, and this is actually the one that got all the way. So I was mentioning on the podcast with one other guest, I was doing all the math, and it's like easily 130 sessions combined just to get to this guy finally.
Wow.
That's like a
Did it
dream.
feel fulfilling to get to him finally then?
Yeah, that ironically it was the first campaign that failed, and it just like it was personal reasons and all that and player disagreements of misexpectations and all that. But technically this villain was that first campaign's villain, and that group with the way I was treated and kind of degraded was the reason I even got into content creation. So that villain was technically my origin story to becoming a content creator
Awesome.
way back in 2018.
That's I mean, that's unfortunate, but sometimes
Yeah.
out of those situations something really amazing happens, and I think that's what happened with you, right?
Yeah, it
Kind of
was
pivoted.
I got degraded and my confidence ruined, and I went out instead of just like giving up, I turned it the other way. It's like I'm gonna go prove that I am this good dungeon master, this good game master, and prove you guys wrong, and yell into the void of the internet and get that validation.
So there's just a
It's
little bit of
yeah.
perseverance there that you're like, listen, this is good. Someone's going to enjoy it. Did your players feel like did they have like a satisfaction of concluding a campaign, or were they like, you know what, I still feel like we have a story to tell?
I'm about 99% sure they did because we played from 6 at night till about 12:30 in the morning to finish
Mm.
it, and the last hour was just the I told them all the battle's done. I'm like, all right, pretend this is a movie. It cuts to that, it fades to black and cuts to 1 year later, or and all that, because I've heard that multiple times online. I go, where's your character? Or how's your
Yeah.
character story end even beyond the 1 year? And they all, one by one, went around the table and said so. And came up with some very interesting stories that I'll have to, because I have a campaign guide kind of being written that I have to add into the book now. It's almost that Game of Thrones, Jamie Lannister, Knights of Deeds book.
Yeah. That was it emotional for you guys to
Mm.
be at that spot where like you have this epic battle, you've done the thing you need to do, and now you're decompressing. Was that decompression moment? Was that emotional?
I don't think we got an emotional moment per se, or than like
Okay.
satisfaction. Nothing like sad or
Hmm.
bittersweet or anything. Uh, we had a we had one. Our warlock got turned into stone halfway through the battle because it was a beholderkin, and the druid saved her. And then, what is it? About halfway through the battle, Lang Mini's studio, who plays a paladin slash warlock, a hexadin, unoptimized, was he. So this thing was a pure Frankenstein monster of all the aberrations and all the best abilities, and one of, just because I'm a horror fan and love to gross out my players, was the Mind Flayer Dragon. Its breath weapon is literally spewing out nothing but tadpoles in a 60-foot like cone or line,
Oh, wow.
and he got tadpoled. So he was going to be dead either way by the end of the thing, and then he got disintegrated, and destroying him and the tadpole, and then he got wished back. For anyone that's listened to the podcast knows that our satyr sorcerer had a monkey's paw, which was held a wish spell, but it was always in a negative connotation, so he wished him back. And the the negative side effect of that wish was my paladin does not remember the campaign at all after he got resurrected. It Session one is the last thing he remembers.
Wow. Oh, what?
Wow.
How many years did that span? Like in real time,
Uh,
all
three
those
years.
sessions?
3 years next. Well, this month. If this is coming out in July-ish, I imagine of June. 3 years this month. So he
What
has
was his
his character
reaction to that?
shock. He's played for 20 odd years, so he's had a lot of stuff thrown at him, but he's just like,
Hmm.
just kind of nodded and like, okay. We still have yet to record a podcast to kind of go over that finale, so I haven't got his like full, like thought out, like, this sucks.
That's that's crazy. I mean, in the campaign we're in right now, we had one episode where we went to meet up with one of our friends, Graddick, and when we finally got all back together, we're like, oh, yeah, like we got the band back together. And he told us that we had been gone for 6 years. And that was wild. But it wasn't like we had forgotten all of those 6 years back to the first episode. We had just been missing. We've been out of this area for 6 years. And that was shocking to me as a person. So I can't imagine, your friend that's been so invested in this campaign for all these episodes to then be like, oh, surprise, you don't remember anything
I
after episode
did
Yeah.
after session one.
I did that because I run a Nordic themed, I guess, campaign, and they're in the Fire Realm for 8/10 of the campaign. So they were gone for like three to about a month in the Fire
Okay.
Realm, and when they came back, it had been a year in like the material
Yeah.
plane.
Yeah.
It's
Now,
wild.
how did you come up with that as a DM? Do you already have that like set? Like, listen, if they use the wish in this situation, this is like I have five negative side effects I might allow to happen, or did you just pull that, off the top of your head?
So I pulled that off the top of my head and had a couple of like ideas because it was the sorcerer, and I've known him for several years. I know kind of had an idea of what he might use it for, was a resurrection spell, and that paladin was a captain of the guard before the campaign started, and he goes, I wish for the captain, and he goes, I say his full name, I wish for the Captain Merrick Thrasher to come back to life. And so I started, okay, we'll take him back to captain of the guard.
Okay. All
And that
right.
was just the first guts instinct of the most negative thing I could think of.
So you're an evil genie. You're like, yeah, I'll grant the wish, but I'm gonna take it very literal and not this in the spirit of what you're saying. I'm gonna say the captain, and when we found him as a captain, it was 3 years ago. That's awesome. I love that.
Then, well, he had the
You have
Twilight Zone monkey's paw. So, and he'd known from the beginning any wish he
Hmm.
makes with it is always going to be in a negative thing. That was actually how
That's
it
a
was
negative
sold to
sword.
him. The shopkeeper told him, "It's like, I want this out of my shop. Any wish you make with this is just turns out bad, no matter what. I just want it out of my shop." And he bought it.
and he took
Understood.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have players on our table that will do the same thing. It's like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll figure it out later.
And that was exactly his reaction when I like sales pitched it to him in character.
He's like,
Yeah.
sold. I'll take it. Do you have a favorite session um, out of all of those sessions? Is there one that just kind of like sticks out in your head, or is there like a favorite fight?
Yeah. Uh so the favorite fight, and I dedicated an entire podcast episode to this if anyone wanted to go listen to, like, the newest player takes out my scariest antagonist. And I built up this NPC that was a former player character from a previous campaign as this big bad guy that has several artifacts, and he's basically, if you run into him, if you treat him without any care, you're gonna die. And so they find
Hmm.
this artifact sword to take out the main villain, and he shows up to take the sword. And instead of running away, which I thought they would, they chose to fight him. And probably about they were getting their butts kicked. About, like, first round, they had like an archmage NPC with him, and then he just takes a Vorpal sword and 20s her and beheads her first round, which just set the entire mood for the entire fight. About halfway through the
Yeah.
battle, the newest player at my table, who plays this celestial warlock, had the demiplane spell, and I rule cooled it a little bit, but she goes, "Does this say I have to cast it on a vertical surface?" I'm like, "No, it just says you open a doorway, basically." And she cast the demiplane spell underneath of him to where he fell through the door.
Yep.
And now he's stuck in a 30 by 30 room, and then she dismisses it, and he gets stuck there for basically everywhere but the last session of the campaign.
Wow.
So how many rounds did that fight actually end up being? Like three?
The final battle or the big bad guy? That
No, the
guy,
one where
Another
she.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's probably about the fourth round of combat. It was
Fourth
getting
round.
dire. He
Okay.
just took out two NPCs, knocked out two other or PCs, and then she's just like, "This is getting bad."
Hmm. I like that you got to use him a little bit. I feel like, sometimes you have like this great, beautiful bad guy, and they figure something super clever out in the first round or two. And you're like, I'm so happy for you because that's exciting for you, but it's so anticlimactic for me because I had all these ideas of things I wanted to do with that big bad. So that's cool that you got 4 rounds out of it.
Oh, I've had that happen multiple
Players
times where
always
just
throwing off the DM.
where I come up with a big kind of bad boss for like a story arc, and then it fizzles out. They have fun and all that, and I'm glad they have fun. But
Yep.
I'm just like, it's like I was hoping that he'd beat the crap out of you, but okay, because my goal is never to kill any of my players. I just want to beat the crap out of their characters.
Yeah. I want
Yeah.
everyone to feel the threat. I don't want to kill
Yeah.
you. I just want you to feel the threat. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That stress is actually kind of, I don't want to say enjoyable, but it makes the session more memorable. And I think when you have that pressure, like, oh, I might die, like I'm really low right now, I'm not doing well. And then I think hopefully you have to start to really rely on the others on your table to help you and assist through that fight or battle. So I actually enjoy those kind of stressful situations.
And I told them going into this final campaign session, it's like this dude is a mind flayer, beholderkin, aberration, Frankenstein monster. This dude has. I told them I go meta game wise. I go, this dude has an intelligence of 26. He knows what you guys are.
No.
Right.
And I go, I'm not this type of DM, but I am aiming to kill you guys this session. And I'm not going to hold any punches back.
Mhm.
And they all felt it.
That's awesome. Have you ever had one of your sessions just feel like it completely just fell apart, like it just went off the rails and was not at all what you had planned and just didn't go any which way that you had set out for it to be?
Uh, Almost every campaign I have at least one or two of those. This session was a basically just a traveling session in between spots, and one player was sick, so we were down to 3 players out of the 4 or 5, anyways. It was just gonna be a traveling session, a role playing session, and maybe one kind of role playing complication that I had planned. Uh, but one of the players was having kind of a real life issue, and they just said, I can't even, because we hadn't played in like 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember what we were doing and all this. There's like, and she was having like analysis paralysis. And she's like, I don't even know
Mm.
what the right way to go is. And I'm like, and so we had kind of that for the session. We kind of halfway stopped there. They in character stopped at a campfire, had a night, and they basically had like an in and out of character discussion of like what are going forward. There are a lot of choices with these different factions, these different NPCs in play. Of what is there's no right answer here. So what is the best option
Mm.
for us of who to ally with, who to make enemies with, because we're going to ally with this person, and in the end go fight this big bad guy that they ended up fighting. Because if we don't play our cards right here, we're going to make enemies out of everyone.
Yeah.
So we might as well make in quotations, friend out of somebody here. And they just spent the evening just doing
Right.
that.
Mm.
I like
I
that.
can remember one of my friends was running a Star Wars 5E edition, and we were down a couple players. And I feel like the days that you're down players and you still play get very dicey. And
Mhm.
so we decided to just, excuse me, we decided to just run around and just, explore a little bit. And so he let us go to like a warehouse, and we were like trying to unlock doors, and everything was locked. And we went down into a basement, and there was a door, and it was locked. And I rolled a nat 20 on it. And he was like, okay, I guess like, you unlock the door. So we go in there, and there's like this dark Jedi sitting in the corner meditating. And we're like, he's not going to kill us when we're down like 2 people. So let's fight him. And he was like, okay, I guess you guys are fighting in Dark Jedi. And we wiped. And we were like, I can't believe we died on a throwaway episode. And he was like, I'm still letting you guys make real decisions no matter how many players are missing on the table.
That's
Yeah, and
that's crazy.
it makes an even better like role play for the people that missed, and let's say
Oh,
their
yeah.
characters are stuck at like Mos Eisley or whatever,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then it's like, well, so and so they said they were going here. I just chose to stay behind because of quotations and character reasons, whatever they may be, and it's like they didn't come back.
We rolled 3 new characters.
Oh my god.
I mean, look at the first episode of Mandalorian, for instance, when all the stormtroopers like surrounded Mando, and just like how that turned out. And IG-88's like, or I think it was IG-88 or something like him, was basically threatening to
Hmm.
self-destruct like several
Yep,
times throughout that entire fight.
it gets crazy. It's so
Yeah, those are
awesome.
good sessions.
They're memorable.
Mhm.
From a player standpoint, I love them. From a DM standpoint, I've never killed anyone on a table. I have killed someone. That I lied. I have killed a player character. Have you killed a player character before?
Oh, several.
Uh, Several. Okay.
Like permanently
Yeah,
wise,
permanently.
permanently, yes. I've killed
Okay.
over the 16 years I've played. I've played several. No one in this campaign, fortunately, but unfortunately, for to pad my fearsome DM resume, but uh, yeah, multiple times. The first campaign that fizzled out. Half the reason it fizzled out is because all but one character survived.
Okay. Yep.
And it was already
All
kind of
but
falling
one.
apart, all but one. Uh, so they were in this big battle at this orc settlement, and I was the first. It was my basically my version of like an homage to the Game of Thrones Long Night.
Hmm.
And these aberrations come in and come attack this orc settlement that they're at. Everyone gets wiped except for one character, and she got knocked out even, but she managed to roll herself back to consciousness. And the group was already kind of falling apart because of personal reasons, as I was mentioning, and it just seemed like, this is a very in quotations Call of Cthulhu moment of this is a bittersweet, somber ending of like
Yeah.
this is where it ends.
Yeah, I've not permanently killed, but I've killed a couple player characters. And in the worlds that I normally am running a campaign in, I like to do high magic. So it's like, yeah, you died, but you could always find a wizard or someone that has resurrection. It might cost you guys all the gold you have on you, but you can always bring someone back. And so one of my earlier campaigns that I ran that fizzled out, I had killed one of our players, and he was not okay with it. And I was like, don't worry, like they're bringing your dead body back to town and they're going to get you resurrected. And he did not enjoy being dead. And I felt bad because I hear a lot of DMs talk about like if we kill a character, I want the player to be okay with it. Like, is it thematic?
Mhm.
Is it appropriate? Does it align with the story? And mine was so not that. It was literally like a pack of dire wolves just happened to attack them on a random encounter, and everyone fled away from him, and he was the only target there for like three dire wolves. And they had pack tactics and they just mauled him to death. And he was like a squishy player. And so he was mad at the table, he was mad at me, and that just did not go well.
I feel that's a lot of stories before, kind of in quotations, before Disney kind of took over Marvel, and being a nerd became cool, and before Stranger Things made D&D and Critical Role made D&D popular and all that, where it became
Yeah.
more of a storytelling thing as opposed to like just a game. Like,
And like,
unfortunately, I do wear
yeah.
the merit badge of dishonor of killing my sister's sorcerer and disintegrating her into a fine pile gray of ash.
Oh,
It's,
oh no.
And it was about
was
halfway
she
through
okay
that
with
cat.
that, or was she
No,
not happy
she
with you?
was. She wasn't happy with me at the time. She's of course since forgiven me, and we were very close and all that. But no, she was not okay at the
In the
time.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of worked out because her ex, or well, her boyfriend at the time, and her ex, now thank goodness ex, was also playing, and he just kind of like decided to leave the campaign and the
Mhm.
group, and then left her to basically play with all of us. But she didn't have the basically courage or confidence to tell us, hey, I don't really want to play, and if he's not playing, because they were
Right.
breaking up. And so she just took it. She was upset because she was really attached to the character, but at the same time, she took it as a blessing in disguise.
Right.
Yeah, you get really
The
attached
mercy
to these
kill.
characters, especially
Yeah.
if you've had them for so long. Like they have character arcs and how you develop them, and you write a backstory. I mean, I don't know about you, but Nate, but when I wrote the backstory for the character I'm playing in our current campaign, that was like a few pages of
Hmm.
detail of her house and her room and what was on her shelf and like her relationships with her family. Like I love all of that. And
No.
when your character
Back
dies, like I think I'd be heartbroken if Philomena died.
Now, back in the 2000s when I first started playing, that was a jinx, and you would have died within the first 3 sessions, and not because the DM was out to get you. It was just a jinx of writing that detailed of a backstory.
Do DMs really hate that like that much of a backstory? I think you have a couple
No, and
kinds of people like all the details or like nothing at all.
no, GMs don't mind that at all. It's a lot more to feed off of. I actually like a player that writes out a full-fledged backstory. The other thing I like, which happened this campaign with my warlock, is she handed me nothing. She just says, "Hey, do whatever you want." I'm just like, let's go.
Well, that has to be fun.
Oh yeah, it was. She ended up being a goddess by the end of the campaign.
And she was
But
cool with just like all of the ways you went with her
uh
character.
well, because she was brand new to D&D and she was new to kind of even the fantasy genre, she got a little bit of imposter syndrome because I gave her such a heavy storyline. But you told the writer
Yeah,
to have creative freedom. I was more
Yeah.
meaning to go
that's
back in
fun.
the mid 2000s, writing a full fledged backstory, like 3 pages though. It wasn't like a bad thing for a dungeon master though. It was just luck wise a jinx of like, okay, you just
Mm.
invested way too much off front ended off this character. More than
Yeah,
like you're gonna die now just because of bad luck.
yeah, yeah. I think it's fun for me as a player when I write those longer, more in-depth backstories. You kind of wait and have a little bit of like anticipation to see how the DM is going to weave little hints or glimpses of your story into their storyline. I always like there was one session where um, my cousin who is our DM mentioned something and I was like, ooh, and then you get kind of nervous. Like I wrote this whole backstory and I have it, and it's like I hope I can remember all the little details if he pulls something up and he's like, "Hey, what was that thing that was in your room on the shelf, on the third shelf in the book?" So I guess that's a little bit of a two-edged sword when you write such a complex backstory, right? Like I enjoy it, but then it's the stress of never knowing what a DM's going to pull out of it and hope that you remember something.
And that's another DM tip for anyone that's listening to this podcast is if they write that long of a backstory, tell them to duplicate it and hand it to you. That way you can go over those
Yeah.
details.
Yeah,
Now we
absolutely.
talk about a lot about DMing. Have you ever been on the other side of the table? And which side of the table do you enjoy more?
I've been on both sides of the table with Dungeons and Dragons. I've always been I take that back. I have been a player multiple times, but 97% of the time I've been a dungeon master. Lang Mini Studio, who is also my co-host, ran a Fallout 2D20 game for about a year, and I had such fun being a player in that and getting to be a player that extracted a little bit of revenge on him, if not just like because I know a couple of tricks of just like soft curveballs. I'm like, okay, time for you to stretch out your game master muscles. So let's throw you a curveball.
Yeah. What's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you in one of your sessions?
Oh, that's a good question. And not this campaign, but let's see, the campaign before, and then way back when I played fourth edition. There's two stories. I'll give you two of them because
Okay.
it's kind of a tie. The last campaign was my brother's dwarf character, and he ends up They end up freeing this like starved blue dragon out of a extra dimensional area. Incidentally, because they were trying to get out of it as well, but he just followed them because he's starved. They get into this forest area, and then he gets ready to go after the group, and then my brother with this dwarf bard, all of a sudden, who's a coward and just a, a fumbling fool, kind of Pink Panther, Inspector Clouseau type, decides to be a hero and gather the dragon's attention. Uh, it wasn't so much of a fifth edition thing. It was more of a fourth edition thing. They had these things called skill challenges where you did so many checks of successes before failures, or you get like 6 successes before 3 failures type thing. And so I'm like, all right, this is going to be a skill challenge because I'm not going to have you sit and fight a dragon solo. That's just very anticlimactic. So I'm like, what do you do? And he goes, I just start running. That dwarf is the most luckiest dwarf who rolled nothing below a 20 throughout that entire skill challenge.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, those are some
Awesome.
good
Like
charged
he rolled
dice.
Yeah, he rolled nothing below a 17 on his dice. He was rolling 20s to 30s and survived. And just getting to kind of role play describe him being chased by this starved blue dragon who's hardly able to fly, but they're chasing and
Oh,
brambling through this trees and all that, and eventually escaping and hiding was just everybody was just like,
That is awesome.
do
the
you like
other.
go ahead. Sorry, I'll ask
Oh,
when
I
you're
was just
done
going to go
my
to the
other
other
story.
story.
But
You're
you
gonna.
had you had a second story.
Yeah. The second story was we were playing in Forgotten Realms, and we are playing in a town that hated magic users and was very prejudiced, like racist against like Fae. And we had of course, an elf spellcaster. Come to find out, this kind of, I believe it was a cult that was kind of brainwashing or kind of grooming a local orphanage into being their next members. The group didn't know this. They try and go free the orphanage from the cult. Come to find out about the final battle is basically the orphans start attacking the group because they're trying to save him. This elf spellcaster's trying to lead the charge because he's the charisma based person trying to all this. They start attacking. One thing or another happens, and this dude uh, blows a hole in the floor and then tries to escape because he falls down in the basement. Has a couple orphans on him. He goes, I cast invisibility and all this and try and run. And he's basically running throughout the building invisible while he has 3 orphans like wrapped around his invisible body running out of this orphanage.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
You said your sister played and your brother.
Yeah.
Do you have more siblings? How did you convince them to play with you? Did they always like D&D,
Um,
or was that just like took a little convincing on your part to get them on the table?
a little bit of convincing. They've always kind of enjoyed it. They've played in a
Yeah.
couple of different campaigns over the years. After that one campaign kind of petered out, uh, the person I was in a relationship with, who's now my ex, wanted to get back into it after so long. And I'm like, and then I kind of invited them to kind of ease into it. I figure what better than family to kind of ease into it, and it took off from there. And then the pandemic happened and other things happened and it petered out, unfortunately, as some campaigns do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy playing with your siblings though? Because you had the probably all of the history of your own inside jokes, and then you have all of the new ones that you get on the table, and just that
Um,
connection is really fun.
yeah, I do like playing with my siblings just because, like, you go into a session 0 and you know people's kind of lines and veils. You know,
Yeah.
with a sibling, unfortunately, that you could probably step 1 or 2 steps beyond that line of veil and kind of push their uncomfort a little bit more, just to
Yeah.
kind of push them a little further, just to, for, not to make them uncomfortable by any means, but just for a laugh. Like my sister hates insects and all that. There is a horrible amount of insects throughout those sessions.
A lot of very large spiders.
No.
Very large spiders. One of the sessions was a very large dire centipede that came crawling through the camp and
Mhm.
tried to attack the players.
Yeah, no, my cousins asked me a few times, like, if I put a spider out, like, are you okay? And because he knows I hate spiders, I'm like, no, I can deal with it. I know that's not real, but it is fun to play with people that you have close relationships with. We have the privilege of, like I said, my cousin is our DM, and then Zach and my cousin have known each other since they were in preschool. And then we have a few other friends that sit on our table that Jonathan and I have known for forever, for eons. So you have those close relationships and the history together. And I think that just makes playing more special when you have so much history and you really know a person. Like you said, you can kind of push their buttons, or you kind of understand their thought process and can kind of use that to your advantage.
I think that's the upside of this campaign for sure. Is just because I've known most of these people either 5 years to a decade more. We're all pretty close friends, so
Mm.
I know their buttons and their triggers. Like Lang Mini Studio, he gets very frustrated when like he asks an NPC a question and he's playing a dark kind of paladin character, so he's being very kind of forward and borderline rude. And then they start giving him attitude, not answering his questions, which irritates him as a player just because it's like, that's one of his buttons. I've had a couple of players who have borderline arachnophobia, which I've played with more
Mm.
than once. Uh, probably I've never crossed the line with it, but I've certainly played with it or had them have to go into a spider's den, which comes to find out there's another monster in there that killed all the spiders, but it's something even worse than you probably wanted to deal with the spider.
That's dirty. That's dirty, Nate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a lot of fun for everyone else that sits on the table because they also probably know, and this person doesn't like spiders or whatever the situation is, and they're just waiting to see what's going to happen and how they're going to react.
Yeah, that particular character got kind of upset with me because she hated spiders and she thought I was going to bring them out for that couple of like sessions, and no
Right.
spiders came out, but they had to crawl through a very spider entrenched den or
Mm.
a spider web
Just the thought
entrenched
of it
den.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then come to find this other monster, and then by the end of that arc, I'm like, I didn't bring out any spiders. You told me not to.
Jonathan, don't get any ideas in Novamir.
No, no spiders in Novemere. You're good.
Uh-huh. Yeah, sure.
One more D&D question for you before we move on. Are there any house rules that you guys use that maybe is like not a normal house rule, or maybe it is a normal house rule? Is there anything that you go, you know what, the book says this, but we're gonna do it a different way?
I think we have a lot of normal house rules. Most of the house rules I've gotten are either usually ones I've heard that I've really kind of picked up on, or just annoying ones that just make things easier. Like I think rules was written in 2014 5e. Like if you cast a spell, you can only cast a cantrip as like a bonus action or something like that.
Mhm.
That went out the window. I
Oh,
just
okay.
let them, yeah, I just let them cast whatever they want, as long as And but I tell them it's like, just realize if you start abusing things, the monsters start abusing things. So they
Mm.
Right.
play it pretty
Right, works
close.
both ways. Yeah.
The other one that I've had a lot of fun with, and I've talked about multiple times on my podcast, is I got rid of common language in my setting. Uh, it allows for the role playing ability for a translator and puts more emphasis on an intelligence character. It allows it to be a little bit more in depth when you have regional dialects then, and it adds a lot more kind of well, we were talking about Star Wars earlier, that C3PO kind
Yeah.
of moment where
Yeah.
he's translating for the group, or they actually have to hire an NPC translator.
Yep.
I do the one, let's say if they have a 16 intelligence, so they have a modifier of +3. So you get your starting language is +3 more per your modifier, depending. And that's worked out great. The funnest roleplay moment with that is when they're having a full conversation with this person in a foreign language. No one in the group knows what they're saying, and the NPC says this big long drawn out thing, and then the NPC replies, or like the translator replies back, and then somebody asks at the table, well, what do you say? He goes, oh, he's okay with that. He's like, you guys just talk for 2 to 3 minutes straight, and that's all he said is he's okay with that. There's a lot more there.
It gets lost in translation.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. I like that.
Or
Um,
or just being able
I
to have that translator say, it's like, oh, you wouldn't get it. Don't worry, it's just a
Yeah.
joke.
it's over your head. You wouldn't understand
Yeah.
it anyway. I like that. I think that's a really awesome idea for your character, especially, if you're just from this little tiny village. It's in real world, it's very possible that you might have a different dialect than other people that are in your region. So I appreciate that, and it also must be really fun too, like you said, for someone to do a translation and just be like, oh yeah, 10 minutes later it was 2 words.
Well, that, and not to put down the United States by any means, but almost every other country in the world's bilingual in one way or another, so it's not
Oh yeah.
exactly unrealistic.
Mm-mm. That's very realistic. Yeah. So you were a DM for a really long time and you still DM. How did
Yeah.
you transition from that into your podcast? Because your podcast is
Uh
fantastic and you have lots of episodes. So let's do a plug for
yeah,
your podcast.
we are mid 80s on the episode count, probably be 100 hopefully by Halloween if I calculated right, if not late September, early October-ish, if we do a couple double episodes. That started because we're doing this campaign, and a super real moment here is like my mother died of leukemia, and I was 39, 40 at the time. She died. She didn't even get to chemo. She only got 6 weeks after her diagnosis. She caught pneumonia, and her immune system just couldn't fight off the cancer and the pneumonia. And at that time, it kind of, well, I'm 39, 40. I'm technically, with the way my family is, historically on the back nine.
Mhm.
So I've been doing this game for 15 years, 16 years at this point. I have tons of knowledge that I'd love to share beyond just like memes or little 9-second skits on social media, which is irritating enough as is because Instagram keeps changing their algorithm and all that.
Yeah.
So, Chase, the other co-host, he's a college esports coach, and he had a
Mhm.
couple of media majors that needed to get some projects going. So they're going to help me with the basically getting my like engagement up with Instagram and
Mhm.
TikTok and help me understand things. And they were even getting frustrated because nothing that they kind of seemed to kind of throw at the wall stuck.
Mhm.
And then we got into podcasting and talking about that because I'd done 2 or 3 years of that in high school and always enjoyed it super much, like a lot. And I was a journalism major for 4 years at that, and almost actually went to college for it if it wasn't for real life issues at the time and not going into college for that. And so it just kind of seemed like a good thing to do. And then after that, I talked to Brent and Chase and like, hey, would you guys want to do this? It's just we spend 45 minutes after each session talking about things anyways. Why don't
Yeah.
we just turn that into a podcast? And it just kind of turned into that from there.
Where
Uh,
can people find your podcast?
Everywhere, but basically Apple. And that's no sort of like statement or stance against Apple. It's just claim that my email has an account with them already and I can't reset the password on it. And I try and contact support and no one ever answers me. So I guess they just don't get it on that platform, unfortunately.
Well, you know what? It's their loss.
Yeah. Uh,
Hopefully they'll
but
smarten up one day and reach out to you and be like, "Oh, hey, do you want to
So sorry.
yeah."
We didn't
but
understand that you're a big deal.
yeah, like
Right.
90% of my traffic's on YouTube, and then
Mhm.
20% of it's all the other platforms.
Okay, cool.
What
And
do you
we're
enjoy
audio on.
most? Sorry.
Oh, I was just no, you're fine. I was just saying we're audio only at the moment, but we have big plans of becoming basically a video podcast. Or
That's awesome. I enjoy I enjoy both, and having the option for both. Because if you're driving or if you're somewhere and you can't actually watch people, it's just nice to be able to hear it. But if you can sit and actually watch, that's also really enjoyable to see how everyone connects and talks to each other. And I think that's a nice feature that you have now available for podcasting.
that was actually the original pitch for the podcast because we tried to stick to 30-minute episodes just because I grew up watching sitcoms and that
Mm,
was always kind of my go-to.
yeah.
We sometimes teeter on an hour like we did with our episode back in Christmas,
Yeah.
but the average drive time in America to your work is 27 and a half minutes statistically. So
Is
the
it really?
original pitch for yeah, this original like pitch for the thing was tabletop gaming on your way or to or from work.
No problem. Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. Plus, I mean, people's attention spans are pretty short as well. So if you can get that half hour, 25-minute mark and they've listened to you, you get that listener time as well, which is really good for YouTube for the algorithm.
The average podcast listening time for anyone that's a statistic nerd like me is only 5 minutes actually before they flip it
5
off whether
minutes?
they
Oh,
want
so
to.
people are
Yeah.
long gone listening to this. They've checked out a long time ago.
Unless your name is Joe Rogan, people are not
Yeah.
sticking with you. And even him, like I've watched, they have like their long versions, but they have a lot. They cut it up a lot because they know people just like here's the highlight, here's 30 seconds because you're gonna move
Yeah,
on.
here's the clips and all that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I try and tell people I don't want to do a 3 hour conversation. I don't want to try and produce a weekly Lord of the Rings special edition movie every week. That's just too much for me.
No one has time for that. What do
No.
you what do you enjoy most about hosting podcasts?
Um, just being able to talk with my friends. Uh, I will say because probably about probably about 25 of the episodes are like game discussion recaps of talking about our own game and kind of adding on to that. And getting to hear their kind of like reflections of what happened or kind of what
Mhm.
their characters think in that moment, stuff we don't usually get to talk to at the table. It's definitely allowed me to kind of step up my game, getting that insight and also add in twists that they might not been expecting because now I know what they're expecting. So why don't I steer it a little bit the other
Mm,
way?
that's sneaky.
Yeah. And that it's just like meeting people like you or meeting other people in the community and actually getting to sit down and talk to them when I wouldn't normally get
Yeah.
to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we're starting to enjoy. We did quite a few episodes of this podcast last year, Jonathan, and then some early this year. And they were mostly just us talking to each other about various topics. But now that we're like starting to schedule podcast recordings more regularly, it is nice to be able to reach out to people like you. We recorded a session with Andy from Dodeca Donuts, and we've met him before at like PAX, but it's really nice
Yeah.
just to sit down when you're not in that environment with 1,000 other people trying to get to you and talk to you and just sit with the person and find out more about them, about their background, where they grew up. Like it's just a really cool thing to connect with people, with you and with others in this community. I really enjoy that the most.
Yeah, around May, I had a very small podcast that was out of the UK called Rolling with Story. And I used to think my podcasts were wild. We were talking actually about campaign finales as well, just because it was about a month out from our own, and just kind of how to step up your thing. But hearing some of their stories of their previous campaigns, I'm like, man, mine is just like mild.
Vanilla.
Child's play.
You guys, you guys go off the deep end with some of your stories. Like they got in one of the campaign stories, they had to ditch the setting because they killed magic off in their setting.
Wow.
And then they were
That's
telling me all
rough.
this story. They were telling me all this story, and I'm like, why didn't you guys just Game of Thrones it and just like fast forwarded 100 years, have a red comet come by and magic reactivates for whatever reason? And they just kind of like looked at me like, because we didn't think of that.
Because you weren't on the table, Nate. That's why.
Yeah,
And you're like, well, if you want more tips like this, you should listen to my
yeah,
Yeah,
podcast on YouTube.
exactly.
exactly. Because
Those are
I'm
not,
very good at I'm good at twisting things, and that's a lot of what my players say. It's like you're very good at twisting it one more dial over than what we were expecting.
yeah, I think DMs, good DMs, I think have to be very creative and good at storytelling, but also humble enough to be creative and write an amazing story and know when to kind of like let go. And I think, I mean, that's the most enjoyable thing as a player to watch that happen.
One of my like more enjoyable things with being a content creator, especially on Instagram, with a well, 7 years into it, a decent following, and having people like message me every other week or weekly almost about like some sort of DM tip, and it's just like some random that's messaging me and telling me about their game, and then telling them it's like, listen, the best advice I can give you as a game master is like you can watch all the videos, you can prep for the big game you want, but the best experience you're going to have is throwing yourself into the fire at the table.
Mhm.
Either that or figuring out how to really up your improvisation game, because it's a game where you need hands-on experience to gain any sort of experience with it.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
So what's
So,
next for Crazy Hermit DM?
Uh, uh, we are, for me personally, focusing more on the podcast. I've been talking just before we started recording with Lang Mini Studio because we're talking to a 3D printer guy. He's been sending us some stuff and wants me to start promoting that. And I've been watching lots of documentaries lately, especially with Jim Henson or Phil Tippett, which is he created everything. He's created like the xenomorph. He's created the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. He's the bit like, there's Stan Winston and then there's Phil Tippett. Like
yep.
he's done like Star Wars and all that. And just watching those practical effects, and I want to talk to I've been talking to this 3D printer guy about changing like my intro or outro and getting away from royalty free stuff and graphics, and actually filming practical effects for these intros and outros or these loops until we get to become a
That's
video
awesome.
podcast, and just kind of show off this guy's amazing catalog while having like a house in the background that's literally a 3D printed thing and looks like
Hmm.
something that me and my two friends are actually sitting in talking about D&D or tabletop gaming and
Hmm.
telling people about our shenanigans or how they could be better at being a player or game master.
That's
Also,
exciting. I'm
we're
really
also
excited
trying to
about that.
relaunch our sorry, we're also trying to relaunch our Patreon with more because of local tariffs and government rules and how volatile shipping is, switching and
Hmm.
relaunching our Patreon to be pretty much a digitally exclusive type of thing and get that
Very cool.
reinvigorated.
Yeah, reinventing yourself is, just part of the game.
You have to with
Pivot.
social media because it's an ever changing thing.
Hmm.
And I've watched it redo itself several times over the last several years. Back when I first started, it was just posting pictures. Now there's reels, there's all sorts of things. They want you to post carousels of like photo
Yeah.
dumps basically and be authentic as opposed to being polished and graphics and all that and have that facade. They want that uncut stuff.
Hashtags aren't
People
what
want
they
to feel
used to be. There's a lot of things that have changed.
now hashtags are in quotations out. You're supposed
Yeah.
to more put in organic keyword captions and all that.
Hmm.
It's almost a side project in itself to kind of keep up with it all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, before we wrap up, tell tell the people where they can find you, what you have going on. Give yourself all of
Uh,
the shameless plugs.
yeah.
Mhm.
Like I mentioned, we're kind of in our mid 80s episode wise. We got episode 100 coming. We got going to NukeCon here in local Omaha. Budget's been a little tight. We were planning on going to a couple different cons, but that kind of changed with the way the economy is, unfortunately. I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of our community understands that, especially the last several months.
Mhm.
We're trying to upgrade by the end of the year to video. That's at least the goal by fall or video, and have a two-camera setup at least if we're inside the kind of studio, so to speak, or at least the game room. Uh, Shout out to all my wonderful Panathlon of sponsors that send us merch and uh, petty cash to kind of help us a little bit with advertising, and people like you that want to kind of cross over or cross pollinate our podcast. That way, we all get to hear each other's stories because that is
Mhm.
it's just amazing. Like the thing that you learn from podcasting, especially in our tabletop gaming thing, is just like everyone has their own stories away from the table. Then a lot of people's stories are actually very interesting when you get to hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the beautiful thing about podcasting and the community that we're in. I mean, we have said it, and everyone that we've talked to has said it again and again, how generous everyone is, and how encouraging and how willing people are to do collaborations or come sit on your podcast. And that's just it's awesome, and it's really great to be able to share 45 minutes an hour with people.
Well, like I was mentioning, it's like before kind of Stranger Things and Critical Role made this popular, this was not a popular, or it was a popular community, but it was in quotations, a Fight Club community. You did not talk about Fight Club out in public.
Right. Right.
you, it was not a popular thing to admit that you're a nerd till more recently within the last half
Yeah.
decade.
Yeah.
So the ability to actually sit out and wave your flag and share your experience and show it's like, hey, all this multi decades worth of experience here is actually paying off in one way or another, even if it's minute, or you can actually help other people in the community, especially with the internet. It's just a very rewarding thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Nate, if you don't mind, I have a few rapid fire questions for you that we like to give to all of our lovely guests.
Yeah, let's go.
Um, all right. So, favorite Saturday morning cartoon?
Ooh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
All right. Yes. If you could play,
Followed by Real Ghostbusters. Sorry.
oh, those are so classic.
Yeah.
Those are the correct answers. Absolutely. You get 100 on that. If you could play D&D with any fictional character, who would it be?
Any fictional character?
Yeah.
Uh,
Splinter?
yeah. No. I'm going deep on that one. That's hard. But it's rapid fire, so Gandalf.
Ooh. Okay. Guilty pleasure song that you sing to in your car. Windows up, sing at the top of your lungs. What is it?
Lately, because I go through phases with this. Lately
Sure.
it's been it's real popular on Instagram. I really like the space song that it's a very an emotional song. And that the one I like horribly belt out to is my favorite band is the White Buffalo, which is like a country folk rock band.
Yeah. That's I love, I mean, who doesn't love singing at the top of their lungs in their car? And you think you sound just as good as the band that you're listening to, of course.
If
Exactly.
Um,
not better.
if
In
not
my head at
better, right?
least.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. In your head, you sound way better. Um, DM or player? Can you choose one?
DM.
That was quick.
That
Yeah.
was quick.
What's go ahead.
No, I was just saying I love being a storyteller, that's all.
Yeah. What's one magic item you wish every character could have in real life, or maybe yourself have in
Mm.
real life?
Uh let's go bag of holding.
Oh, bag of holding.
That's
That's
exactly what I was
actually
thinking.
awesome.
Yeah.
You were thinking that too?
Yeah.
Bag of
Absolutely.
holding. They
100%.
get so they get
I
so out of control with the bag of holding and the size and how much it carries.
I feel that's probably like the most practical answer as well.
Yeah,
Very
because I have
practical.
this lady that follows me around and hands me stuff all the time. And I'm like, I am not a purse. So I need a
Who
bag of holding
who's
in my
this
life.
who's this lady, Jonathan?
I don't know. It's some weird girl.
No, it's not me. It's not me.
Random NPC girl.
Exactly. Random NPC girl. Never heard of her. Who cares? Anything else? Anything else before we officially wrap up, Nate?
Uh, no, other than to shout out to my two co-hosts, Lang Mini Studio and Kilk, for being wonderful friends and getting me where I am and helping support me along the way. Oh,
Fantastic.
I could probably do it without them, but it would not be nearly as easy.
Yeah, you need your friends.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you being on this episode of the Parking Lot. Thank you so much. We enjoyed talking to you when we were on your podcast, and it's been equally as much fun. And we'll find some special holiday or occasion to push this out, like we were your special Christmas guests. We'll figure something
Yeah,
out
well,
epic.
yeah, we need to have you on before the end of the year for sure and have you come
Oh,
back as the
absolutely.
possibly the first
Yeah.
returning guest, unless somebody like really comes back to back.
Yeah, we'll do it. We have lots of things that we're working on behind the scenes, so I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about. Well, that concludes this episode of the Parking Lot. Don't forget to head over to our good friends at eldridge-foundry.com to build your very own custom full color mini today. Eldridge Foundry is the official mini provider for our current campaign in the world of Arabelle. They have custom minis that look like your character without any starter set regret. So those gray minis, we don't want that. We want full color. That's what Eldridge Foundry
Yeah.
provides to us. Head over to Eldridge Foundry, eldridge-foundry.com. Use code cheesebags15 to get 15% off your first order. And thank you again, Nate. We really appreciate it. You have a
And
good
thank
rest
you.
of your day. You're
You
very
too.
welcome. And thank you to everyone for listening. Don't forget to follow Nate at Crazy Hermit DM and follow us at Legends of the Tabletop. Like, subscribe, share, do all the things, and we will see you all next time on the Parking Lot. Stay legendary.